Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like Mac Voices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. And by the Mac Voices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to stay up to date on all the Mac Voices news. Subscribe from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Welcome back to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is the second of our 5 Questions With series. It's a fun little thing that we're doing to try to get to know some of our regular guests or semi-regular guests, find out a little bit about how they use their technology, but in a fun format. And who knows, we might even get a little insight into them as well. This time, I'm happy to welcome Philip Goward of Smile. He's been here before. You know him. You obviously know Smile. Philip, it's great to have you. Thanks for volunteering to put in a little time on the couch.
I've been on the couch many times. Yeah. Chuck, it's great to be here. What a pleasure, and I'm intrigued to be the guinea pig.
Yeah, well, we did this with Neil Pan a few weeks ago, and I got an awful lot of positive response. And
great.
So, we'll see what we can find out about you through your tech. Mm-hmm. But let's start out by, and this is not part of the 5 questions, folks. You'll learn the format soon enough. What is your particular technology setup, especially from an Apple perspective?
Oh, so what do I have in front of me on my desk? I have a MacBook 12-inch, and I have an iPhone. I have a Dell external monitor. Mostly my MacBook is closed, and I have an external monitor, 24 inches high DPI. And I even have a Windows computer. Don't tell.
Ooh. I guess it's just part of the business. Which iPad?
My iPad, actually, I mostly use for reading, and I think it's probably on the arm of the couch, but it's an older iPad, the smaller size, the iPad Mini.
Ah, okay.
Retina.
Okay. And which iPhone? Did you do an upgrade yet, or are you still running something?
I'm 2 years behind now. I'm on iPhone 6.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. So let's start out with something that I personally think is really interesting, but I'm going to flip it around from when we talked before. Mm-hmm. What are the last 3 applications, and they can be Mac or iOS, what are the last 3 applications you use every day, pretty much every day?
Probably Skype. Probably FaceTime, Slack. Of course, 3 is not enough.
well, I guess. Well, I'm not talking about the business day now. I'm talking about you've shut down for the business day, and
I've shut down.
Yeah. What are the last 3 that you touch? Do you check email?
BBC News.
Really?
BBC News. I love that on my iPad. And then I use a application. I use one of 2 video applications for watching Korean TV, which is Viki and Drama Fever.
Those are the 2 applications?
Yeah, it's like Netflix for Korea.
Okay. Wow. Didn't see that one coming at all. What is it about Korean TV that interests you?
The shows are just great. I first started watching shows which were historical dramas, and Korean historical dramas are almost like Shakespeare in their way. They're beautifully done, and the shows last like 40, 50 episodes, some of them hour-long episodes, and you can get a lot across in 40 or 50 hours, but these are not edited in a fast way. So it's very different than American TV. They're much slower, and it's more like the speed of reading a novel. So I love watching them because it's a bit like reading, except it's not reading.
Interesting. So is this a streaming situation, or is this a Netflix kind of thing?
Netflix streaming kind of thing. It's all streamed.
Okay.
Yeah. Viki's actually really interesting. I think it's such a clever service because obviously these are translated. My Korean is lousy. I can manage a little bit, but not enough. And the way that the translations happen in Viki is all crowdsourced. And so you can go on and you can type translations to the Korean if you want to. And there's armies of people so interested enough in the dramas that they sit and translate them the moment they come out. And if you don't like a translation, you can say, this is better and submit that instead. It's very clever, and it happens in many languages.
Now, when you're talking about translations, are these subtitled or are these...
Subtitles, yeah.
Okay, so they're not voiceovers.
They're not voiceover, no. It's just a fascinating model, and it's a great way to see international stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know there was such a thing as a Korean TV Netflix-style service. So
that's one of my odd obsessions. So you asked for a third app. I would say Words with Friends.
So are you? Is that an aberration, or are you a gamer?
I'm not really a gamer. It's just Words with Friends for me. I always liked Scrabble, which Words with Friends, of course, is based on, and it's just wonderful to be able to play at your own pace. And that's what's different about Words with Friends style of game versus some others. You just get to play when you want to, once somebody else has played their move.
I know this much about Words with Friends. So are you playing against the computer, or are you playing against someone else remotely?
Against other people remotely.
Okay.
Yeah, you can run several games at once, and you can take 3 days to get your word if you want to. It doesn't matter. So it's reasonable to run several games, and you can spend 5 minutes of your day and have a little bit of thought entertainment.
Okay, so the first question, man, you're coming across as a serious intellectual here. I'm impressed.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, let's face it, Korean TV and Words with Friends, and yeah, and BBC News. You're very worldly, fellow.
Well, the BBC I grew up with, let's face it, so I wouldn't call that worldly for me.
Okay, all right, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number one. So number two is a bit more perhaps practical. What browser do you prefer, and why?
I mostly use Safari, primarily because that's what I believe the experience that most of our customers will have, because many people don't just use what's on their computer and don't install somebody else. That said, I also use Chrome a little bit. Obviously, I want to look at our website and how it performs in different browsers, and I also use Firefox once in a blue moon.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have particular tasks designated to one browser or another.
Well, I would say that if I'm doing any of the Google Docs stuff, that it performs a lot better in Chrome, I have to say. It can sometimes hang in Safari and you don't know what's happening, so you're better off with Chrome in that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't want to dig into any proprietary Smile stuff, but do you use Google Docs? Is that one of your preferred methods of communicating?
Yeah, Google Docs we use quite a lot. I mean, I use it within Smile. I also use it with nonprofits I work with as well. So it's just so handy when you have a remote team to get on the phone and be able to talk over a document or spreadsheet together. It just makes a world of difference.
So you have really gotten into the whole collaborative work environment.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so this is sort of a two-parter, and you'll need at least your iPhone for it. But what are the icons? What are the apps that you've loaded in the first page dock, or I guess the only page, the dock of your iPhone?
You mean the very bottom section, or on the first screen?
No, the very bottom section.
Okay, well, I now admit that I run my phone in large type, so there's only room for 4. So I have phone, mail, Safari, and music.
Music made it to the dock. That's interesting. What music service, or is just music?
Just Apple's Music, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So here's the second part of that question: is that dock any different? Is the selection any different on your iPad?
Probably, although I almost never use the bottom row on the iPad. So I think it's probably less of a relevant question. I just use the whole screen more. I don't know. So the dock's probably just a default on the iPad.
That's an interesting perspective, I guess, on it. Just because of the bigger screen, more apps, or?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I tend to limit how many apps I put on stuff. I don't want to go beyond 2 screens full of stuff. And so it's not really a big deal to deal with it that way. And I think on the iPad, I use more varied stuff than I perhaps do on the iPhone. And so I have a lot more space to store it. So the dock is less important to me.
Are you one of those people that drops a lot of things in folders and is obsessively organizing? Oh, I think I hit something.
Well, there was the word obsessive, yeah. I am. I'm pretty organized.
Okay, so you have on the front screen of, I don't care, iPad or iPhone, you have a lot of folders that then you drop apps in.
Actually, no. The front screen, I always keep individual icons, and the second screen is all folders.
Oh, right. Now, yeah. See, this is fascinating to me. The way different people approach things.
There is no rhyme or reason to it.
Well, obviously, you've thought about it, or even if you haven't thought about it, there was a reaction if it has ended up that way.
No, I think probably what I don't like to customize the front that much because I think, okay, that's Apple, so they're going to do what they like with that. Why bother? We're having to upgrade our system so many times. Even if I customize it, they'll shove something else in there next operating system release. So I'm not going to worry about customizing that too much, but I will customize the next screen and consider it mine.
And on your screen, you decide to organize everything into folders.
Yeah, mostly into folders. If I have something new, I'll let it float and not be in a folder, but it soon gets its own folder.
Now, is there any? I'm sure there is. That was a stupid statement. I'm sure that there's. I mean, do you have like camera apps and productivity apps and, or what are your folder?
Okay,
categories?
My folders. I for the phone, I only have like 10, 11 folders. And like travel, lifestyle, media, utilities, games, finance, business. I've got a second utilities folder as opposed to utils. So I guess I have 2 different kinds. I have a folder for the car because I have an electric car and it has a load of apps that go with it. And I have a folder for languages, so the little applications for learning languages. And I have a folder for productivity.
I got to go just a little deeper on this. So the languages thing is interesting. Is that something that's a hobby of yours, to learn languages?
At times, I go in and out of a hobby. If I'm going to be traveling to a place, I obviously want to learn the language a bit more. And the last languages I was like looking at learning a little bit was Korean and Japanese.
And how about the car? Now, I do not have an electric car. I don't know anyone that does. But of course, I'm in Pennsylvania. You're in California, so you have a lot better shot. What are some of the apps that come with the car? And if you don't mind telling us, what kind of car?
And no, it's one of the little BMW i3s, and there are several apps. One is just a remote control app, and with it you can see how far your charge is. And so if you plug your car in, you can go into the app, and it'll tell you if you're 50% full of charge or 75, and how far you can go. You can also dial in where you'd like to go to and have that sent to the car as a destination, so it can do guidance and stuff like that for you. And you can look at the efficiency of the car, which is, it just kind of is what it is. You realize you're not as efficient a driver as everybody else, so it's embarrassing each time. I guess I put my foot down too much. And then the other apps, there's charging company called ChargePoint, and they have an app which will let you show where to go to charge your car and whether the chargers are occupied or not, what's free, and which ones have different voltages available. So because some charge faster than others, and those are the two main car apps.
Okay, that's interesting.
It is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, a lot of cars have apps now, actually, not just electric ones. I mean, there's like remote control apps for VW and all sorts for the manufacturers. You can unlock your car from your phone, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we're really getting, I think, into just a point where the car manufacturers have figured out that this is something people want to do, and they're losing money to the aftermarket folks. And so the best thing you can do is put a standard instrument cluster in or something, and like with Apple's CarPlay or I forget now what the Android version of it is, but give people these choices built in, and stop trying to sell them these ridiculous things that are proprietary, and use something that actually works.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you buy a car and you realize you've already got technology which is 3 years old on the whole. Yeah. Because it has to go through so much testing, and it should.
Oh yeah. But there are times, you look at the stereo systems and all, and they seem to always be behind, and that's why I personally am kind of excited to see CarPlay and some of these things in the newer cars.
Absolutely. So, and your guidance system in a car is guaranteed to be behind what your phone has.
Yeah, and yet they still. I mean, I give the manufacturers credit because there's still a faction of the population who's not ready to use a smartphone or do all that connecting, and so they're doing it, but also they're probably paying a fee for it as well.
Well, there's still a faction of our customers who buy it and still have trouble using it in their car. So,
great point. Okay, so that's 3. This is number 4 coming up, and I'm going to tell you that you can't answer with any of the Smile apps for obvious reasons. But what do you consider your 3 most important apps? And again, Mac or iOS, wherever you feel is appropriate.
Important under what circumstances?
Ooh, good comeback. Good comeback. I was thinking, honestly, during your work life, productivity-wise.
Calendar.
Apple Standard Calendar?
Apple Standard Calendar.
Okay.
Contacts. Couldn't live without.
Okay. Again, just the off-the-shelf contacts.
Those 2 standard ones. If you want to go beyond off-the-shelf, which is probably where you'd like the question, I think that for my Mac, I couldn't live without 1Password. Couldn't live without LaunchBar.
2 very good choices.
Yeah, those 2. Dropbox probably is my 3rd, but Text Expander is in there too.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, there's some things that are obvious for the guy that works at Smile, or is one of the partners at Smile, but that's why I disqualified those.
I know.
So interesting though that you haven't decided to go with any of the other calendar or contacts options.
I've tried others too, but ultimately I end up thinking, well, is it that much different than the Apple one? Why am I going through any hassle to use something else when I'm satisfied with the Apple ones? And so I usually stick back to the Apple ones.
It's a great observation, Philip. I think we all chase some of this stuff because it looks cool. And at the end of the day, how many of those features do you actually use?
In the end, it's still a calendar.
Yeah.
It's still an address book.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple choices I've made that I really do feel like I use some of the extra features, or there's something about Apple's options that I'm not quite satisfied with, and they scratch the itch. But overall, yeah, at some point, the basic tools. And again, that's the other thing that you did there. You picked just some very, very basic business tools that have been around for decades and decades.
Yeah, I mean, I think I used to be able to survive without contacts because I would remember them. I mean, I used to have a great memory for phone numbers and that sort of stuff. I don't remember the phone number anymore. You type it in once, and then the phone number is like this thing you never ever see or care about. And so that's why I say these things are so essential now.
Yeah, it's funny. I know people that don't even know their own phone numbers.
Yeah.
Because you're so used to your phone handling all of that.
That's pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's number 4. So number 5, since music has landed in your dock on your iPhone, how do you primarily listen to music? Is it with the iPhone, or do you have a nice home stereo, or and the interface in between?
I have a nice home stereo, which is downstairs in my house. I'm presently upstairs, and I plug that directly into the iPhone directly into the stereo via USB. So mostly I listen from the iPhone over a digital connection to the stereo, and that gives a very good, about the best quality you're going to get out of it, of course, and so it sounds pretty good. Otherwise, I listen on the iPhone when I'm traveling, of course, when I'm out of my house, and usually I use noise-canceling headphones if I'm on a plane. Otherwise, I just stick with Apple's regular ones, because you never know when you're going to get a phone call, and these work pretty well for the noise-canceling when you have calls, and I think that's worth a lot to give the person at the other end a better experience. And then, so otherwise for music, I have a TV which I listen through as well, which is in my office, so that has reasonable speakers, and so I can listen to it on there too.
Via Apple TV?
No, I don't actually have an Apple TV. I have a Chromecast, and there's a little app called Allcast, which you can run on your phone or iPad too. And Allcast will just take any audio out of your device and let it come straight through your Chromecast speakers.
Okay.
And it's very nice. I mean, it'll do it for photos too, so it's kind of nice if you want to show photos. So you can do all that stuff without having an Apple TV as well. I'm sure Apple TV is nicer, but why not?
Oh, sure. Hey, again, whatever works. That's always the truth. Do you mind elaborating on the stereo system setup a little bit?
Yeah, I just have a very simple amp with speakers, and I also have a CD player and a radio attached to it.
How vintage of you, Phil.
It's very vintage. I don't have a vinyl reader anymore. I kind of wish I did. I miss the sound quality of the vinyl.
Oh, now that's interesting. So you are one that you, I don't mean to insult you, but you believe that you can hear a difference between vinyl and the digital.
I can definitely hear a difference. I mean, the digital may be truer to life, but there are certain recordings which you grow up with on vinyl. Well, I grew up with. Young people now won't grow up with, that sound so different in the digital representations, and they lose a lot of what I consider to be the emotion from the music, and which was there in the vinyl. And so I miss certain recordings.
Interesting. I don't miss the days of scratched records and dust and all that.
I know that stuff was all awful, and the weight of our vinyl collection and how to store it. My God, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
CDs are bad enough.
You took it right out of my mouth.
They're too heavy. I love the day when I took all my CDs and went to recycle them.
Yeah. I've got a few tubs, and I do mean tubs, of CDs around here from my old collection that have obviously been ripped and re-ripped a couple times. And it used to be that you had half a wall of your living room dedicated to CDs.
Right. I still have a little portion. I kept all the classical music on CD.
Okay. So that's 5 questions. And I feel like, I've learned a lot about you that I didn't know.
Good.
You make some very interesting choices. I'm still working on the iPhone organization thing. I think it's very interesting because I've gone back and forth on taking things into folders or putting things into folders, taking them out, eliminating all the folders, finding that might not be the best solution. The idea of having just a whole screen of folders as the second screen is really intriguing.
It may help. I don't know. I found the biggest thing that helps is just erasing stuff you no longer use.
How so?
There's less to sift through.
Okay.
Yeah, just get rid of apps that you launched in 6 months, that sort of thing.
So does that mean you do like regular house cleaning into your in the depths of your folders, or?
I think so. I mean, for a phone, when you're carrying your stuff around, definitely. And also, I think I learned to do this as a developer because often you completely blank out the device and restore it. The less data you have to restore, the less time and the less irritating that process is. So you learn to erase stuff.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, and I wouldn't have thought about it exactly from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So how often do you wipe your phone?
Maybe not as often as I would like.
Okay. Every night, Philip wants to wipe his phone. Okay.
No, not that often. I mean, I think nowadays it's maybe once every 6 months I go through everything and erase stuff. It's not that often.
Wow. So you do a complete wipe of the phone?
No, I just mean go through everything like housekeeping, like cleaning my closet.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You are seriously organized, my friend. If you do it every 6 months, I'm not sure I've done it well, never mind.
Yeah. I find the older I get, the less tolerance I have for excess in life. And I find I actually like getting rid of things a lot more than I like gaining things. It's interesting. So the same I apply to cleaning up stuff.
So are you a neat freak?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Yeah. I'm not. So okay. No, that's not fair. I prefer it that way. It just seems like there are always multiple projects going on that never becomes the priority that it should be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my life varies. Sometimes I'm not neat at all because there's just so much going on. You can't deal with that stuff. But other times I try to be, because I think better the better organized I am.
Philip, it's been fun. Thank you. Thank you for
You too.
Because this does imply a certain amount of opening up and trust, and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to subject yourself to it.
Oh, my pleasure. No problem.
So obviously,
I can't wait to see what everybody else says on the show.
We'll get some, and with Neo, I know I found again, you've learned different things and exposed yourself to different ways of thinking. That I think it's, if any, for the folks that do listen to it, they're going to find that maybe there are ways that they could think about what they use and how they make their choices. So,
Hope so.
So obviously, folks can find you at smilesoftware.com with all the great stuff that's there. What social media presences do you maintain?
We are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and also on Google.
Okay. And how about you personally? Do you maintain any, or do you hide?
Oh, I mostly hide. I use my Twitter once in a blue moon. I use my Facebook almost never.
Okay. So
the best way to find me is LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. Okay.
LinkedIn is the one I really use.
Darn, I wish I'd have asked about that. Okay. Then you have to come back and we'll do another 5 questions.
That'll be short if it's about social media.
Philip, thanks again. Great to see you.
Total pleasure, Chuck. Thank you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. I hope you're enjoying these. Please let me know. And if you have questions that you'd like to drop into my list of 5 questions for future guests, please, chuck@macvoices.com. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.